Nietzsche once said, quote, "To live is to suffer. To survive is to find some meaning in the suffering." Unquote. In my last speech, I mentioned that my 8th grade year of school was probably one of my hardest in my life. I was trapped inside of my head by my father's words and expectations for me. And through this, I really didn't have any will to live. I was very upset and very depressed and stuck in this endless cycle of pain. One day, after a particularly rough breakdown, my mother sat me down to talk. And she smiled, and it was that warm, inviting smile that only a mother can give. But her eyes gave me a completely different story. She was so sad and worried about me and what my future would hold, if I even had one. And that was probably the main reason why I decided it was time to change. And that was when I started my whole self-healing through self-worth. And for quite a few years there, it was going really good. And then I made a mistake. I went too far. I crossed a boundary I shouldn't have. So instead of changing my thoughts to be happier and therefore change my natural thinking to be positive, I changed too much about myself. And I sort of became, dare I say, emotionless. I was more of just bored with life. I didn't see any point to live if we're all just gonna die in the end. And I had another talk with my mom, but this time, she couldn't hide it. She was crying. And of course, I've seen my mother cry before, but it wasn't like this time at all. She was so not only sad, but she was disappointed. Not in me. She was disappointed in herself because she felt that she failed as a mother. And at first I couldn't understand this because I'm not a mother. But I listened to what she had to say, and I think I started to understand a bit more. And I just felt so ashamed because I felt that it was my fault. Because beforehand it was that I was sad and depressed, and that's not always something you can control as much. But this time I had brought it on myself by not watching what I was doing to myself. And so I had to go back to my therapist, and we worked through everything I was feeling and what my mom was feeling and developed some new techniques. And the main thing I learned is that I have to let myself feel my emotions. I can't just pack them away in this box labeled "do not open" and store it in my brain. I have to go through everything I'm feeling because that's just part of life. You will feel everything from pain and agony to cheerfulness and excitement, and it's just this huge scale that you can't avoid. And if you try to ignore all these things early on, you're just going to regret it later. It's just going to come back and bite you. So I went again for my self-worth healing, but I was more cautious this time. I watched what I said to myself or about myself, and I looked out for those boundaries, and it's been going a lot smoother now, I should say. And I don't think I could have done anything from the first time my mom helped me to this time. I couldn't have done anything to help myself had it not been for her. Because through it all, she's my reason to live. She's my meaning that keeps me to survive. She's always been there for me, not just because she's my mother and legally has to be, but because she genuinely cares for me. And I care for her. I want her to be happy, and I know that a lot of her happiness depends on my happiness. So I wake up each morning and I face the day because I want to see her smile again. I want to have fun adventures with her. I just want to live. And we all have that. Even whether you know it or not, you have some meaning. It may not be the same for your whole life. It may change. Mine may change. I don't know. I'll just have to live to find out. So every day, when you wake up, think of what matters most to you. Why you want to live. And embrace it. And then embrace your emotions. because they're part of you. They always will be. You can't escape them. And you shouldn't. It's not a bad thing. I hope you guys can understand that. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you later.